the diagnosis of asthma is basically based on these two steps by GINA. So the first and the most important being symptoms, right? So children will have cough, wheezing, shortness of breath and chest tightness. And remember that, all of these symptoms may not be present at one point of time. And if you read the right side of the box, it talks about multiple of these are present. So it is not just cough, it is not just wheeze, it is not just shortness of breath, it is not just chest tightness. Usually 2 or 3 of these would be present. Now, if you have just one thing isolated, then you need to consider a lot many differential diagnoses as well. But usually children with asthma will have multiple of these symptoms. These symptoms, they vary over time. So it might be, better in January, worse in March, better in June, then worse in September and October. There would be seasonal variations. The intensity can be variable, so which means last October was better, this year wasn't. Why? You can have nocturnal worsening of symptoms, and you have worsening with activity and exercise, and that is a very typical symptom in asthma. And if you ask parents, do you think your child coughs? Do you think your child becomes breathless? Do you think your child starts to wheeze when the child is doing some physical activity? And in young children, you can ask them that, when the child is jumping, running, playing, what happens? And a lot of mothers will tell you, oh, Doctor, I think he starts coughing when he's playing. Otherwise, he is okay. Now, that is the starting point of the algorithm, and these symptoms usually are typical. But yes, asthma is an iceberg disease, and we'll talk about it. And in some situations, these symptoms may not be typical. Now, GINA also says that in addition to symptoms, you should get a lung function as well, and you should document that there is obstruction. So, expiratory airflow limitation, and this obstruction shows variability. So, what we tend to do is perform a spirometry, show that there is low FEV1 by FVC ratio at some point of time. The FEV1 may not be low, might be normal as well. But the FEV1 FVC ratios should be low. And in addition to this, you should have at least one of these, and the most commonly used is a bronchodilator challenge. So we give 400 micrograms of salbutamol with an inhaler and spacer. And then when we repeat a lung function, it shows improvement in the FEV1s by 12%, the new criteria being 10%. Now, occasionally we do an exercise challenge, so which means we ask the child to perform a baseline lung function, make the child exercise on a treadmill, and then we repeat a lung function at defined periods. And then we look at the fall in the lung function, and the fall in the lung function by more than 10% tells you that the exercise challenge test is positive. And another very important way by which we can show a change or improvement in lung function is to repeat a lung function after a course of inhaled corticosteroids. So this child has an FEV1 of like 60%. You repeat it after 4 to 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and it improves significantly. So that is another marker that this is a reversible airflow obstruction. So a typical example or a typical spirometry of a child with asthma. So these are the flow volume loops. If you see, the blue one is the pre-bronchodilator graph. It appears to be scooped in shape. This is not normal in shape. And if you look at the post-bronchodilator graph, which is your red one, then it appears to be much better. The scooping actually has decreased. So even just by looking at the graph, I can say that this child has an obstruction and reversibility. Now, if you look at the corresponding values here, then the FEV1 by FVC ratios, which you see here in Act 1, they are low. The FEV1s, they are also low. And when you repeat a lung function after giving bronchodilator, there is significant improvement in the FEV1s, and it improves by 25%, telling us that there is an obstruction and there is a reversibility. But pediatric spirometries can have many nuances. So, for example, if you look at this child, then here again, this graph shows the pre-bronchodilator graph is the blue graph. It shows obstruction clearly, and it shows significant improvement after you give a bronchodilator, which is your red graph. But if you look at values, okay, the pre-bronchodilator values are like 80%, which is not less than the lower limit of normal. The FEV1 values also appear to be fine. It is not less than the 2 standard deviations. But if you look at the corresponding post-bronchodilator values, then it shows significant improvement and it shows significant reversibility in the FEV1s. So pediatric spirometries are a bit different from the adult spirometries, and you need to have some experience, and you will gain a lot of experience once you do these spirometries, or you get attached to a lab who can do good spirometries for you. Now the second investigation that is coming up is using type 2 inflammation biomarkers. So it is usually indicated if your spirometries or PEF is not giving you a positive result in a child who has consistent symptoms of asthma. Usually the FENO is elevated, and that is the test that we use. So it is fractional exhaled nitric oxide, and a value of more than 35 parts per billion is taken as significant in children. We also use blood eosinophils, and the international values cutoffs used are 300, but in Indian setup we exactly do not know, because we have a lot of parasitic infection which can erroneously increase the eosinophilic values. So if you interpret these values, then they can support the diagnosis of a type 2 asthma. They can help you to rule out non-asthma conditions. But the problem is that the low FENO values sometimes do not rule out asthma, and there are a lot of variations and there are a lot of nuances as well. So again, it is not a very robust test as compared to a spirometry, but it can be helpful in certain situations. And at the moment, we try and use it either for patients who are having symptoms which are not very clear, or in patients where you're trying to phenotype them to assess further therapy in a child with severe asthma, and I'll come on to that. So this is what I was trying to say, that in a child, if you look at FENO levels or the exhaled nitric oxide levels, then this is a normal graph. The problem is that in a child with stable asthma, the graph tends to overlap, right? So this graph, it has a long tail, as you can see, and this is still normal. Okay, and children with severe asthma can overlap, and hence this is a zone where your FENO values can overlap, and that is the basic reason why some children with asthma can have a normal FENO. On the other hand, some children even without asthma can have a raised FENO level, and this should be kept in mind. So this is a data from a meta-analysis which talks about the sensitivity and the specificity for diagnosis of asthma, and it also talks about the positive and the negative predictive value. So what they say is that 1 in 5 people with a positive FENO may not have asthma. So these are the false positives. Conversely, 1 in 5 people with a negative FENO can have asthma. So these are the false negatives, and hence, as I said, it is not a very robust investigation for diagnosis of asthma, and that should be borne in mind whenever you are trying to order the test. Hey!